Hi, it's Grandma from Grandma's Footsteps. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a fairy. It's a maker's fairy from www.makers.com. So we start off with a pipe cleaner, and we use the whole length of the pipe cleaner here, and we take a piece of roving in a flesh colour, merino tops or roving, whatever you want to call it, and we pull it off at about 20 centimeters. Okay, and we find the middle of the pipe cleaner, and then I'm going to find the middle of the piece of roving. Okay, and then I put them together, middles together, just checking that that is the middle of the roving, and then just pull it in, pull the pipe cleaners up and twist them tightly, very tightly together there, just so that it's going to hold the wool. So nice and tight. I pull on the wool to make sure that it's nice and smooth where I attach it, but any minute now it'll all be attached. Lovely. And I continue to twist until I've got a bit that's long enough for the head, which we're going to do now. So I take a piece of core wool and I smooth it out, make it nice and flat and ready to use. And you can see there the bit of the pipe cleaner that I twisted to take the head, and we just wrap the core wool nicely around the head, nice and tight, to give it a good base. Go. And because we want to make the head into a ball, I tend to put more of the core wool in the centre rather than the edges. And you can see there I'm pushing it up, and I'm needle felting the bottom quite a bit, and I shall be needle felting the top as well to make it more of a ball shape rather than a sausage shape. But you'll see that as we go along. And here you can see I've started to needle felt from the top to make it more of a ball shape. So, and we just keep on needle felting it until it becomes a nice ball and reasonably firm. Now I will add a bit more core wool, and I will put it mostly in the centre, trying to get that perfect ball shape. So by putting more thickness in the centre rather than the top and bottom, that will help my endeavour. So again, needle felting from the bottom and the top will help again. And it is turning into more of a head shape now. We just need to give it a bit more needle felting. You can add more wool if you feel you need to later on in the process here, but just make a nice round ball. And now I've got a nice ball shape, I will start to pull down the flesh coloured the flesh coloured wool down over the face. Now you need to smooth it out, make it as smooth as you can, but widen it a little bit. You need it to basically cover half of the head, and that's what I'm doing there. Doing one side, and then we will do the same on the other side. You want to get it as smooth as you possibly can, and also you only want to do it once and you want to get the whole head covered, simply because we do not needle felt the face at all. It's what makes it so nice and smooth. There is no needle felting marks in it at all. And there we go, I'm just pulling it together on the sides there. You don't have to worry about the bit of pipe cleaner that shows at the top of the head, because that's going to be covered up with the hair. So here we go, and I'm pushing down on the head. You can do this also by pulling on the pipe cleaner, but now I've got that basically where I want it. I get a long, fairly thin piece of the roving, and I will put it round the head and pull it very tight to finish off the bottom round part of the head to make it look like a ball, and also to making a little bit of a neck. So I'm just winding it round at the moment very tightly, and that I do needle felt into position so it doesn't come undone, but you'll see that in just a moment. I'm just trying to get the whole thing smooth and wind the wool round, and there you go, now you can see it. So that there you go, nice and tight, and just needle felt the end in, needle felt around the neck just a little bit so that it stays. We're not going to get bits missing or coming undone really. So there you go, and you now have a head. You can see here I'm pulling on the pipe cleaners, and that will pull the top of the head down a bit and help again with the lovely round shape. And I'm just smoothing it. Now you can see the join on the sides, but you don't have to worry about that, because again the hair covers it, but you don't want a gap. Okay, and then you've got the two tails from the roving down there, which we will then use later on to cover, to help to attach the arms and to cover part of the body. We now need to make the arms, so we take a pipe cleaner and we cut it at about 18 centimeters, and that's going to make both arms, left and right. So first of all we're going to make the hands. So you use a flesh colour. I prefer to use bat for a carded bat for the hands and the feet. It just makes it easier. I have used roving, but you can't get such a neat effect with it as you can with the carded bat. So here we go, I've got my flesh colour. It's a slightly different colour, but it doesn't really notice. This is in fact a maker's wool. It's their nice new, I believe it's New Zealand flesh. I've got a sample here somewhere, let me have a look. Flesh pink Australian merino bat. So it's a beautiful wool. So you can see here that I've wound the bat, I'm winding the bat up to almost the end of the pipe cleaner, almost the end, and then I'm bending the end over so that the piece at the bend is already covered with wool. So that just makes it easier to make a perfect hand, or the end of the hand, and make it nice and smooth. These we do needle felt, as you will see, so wind round to make the hand, and then use your excess just up the arm a little, and then we will needle felt that in place. remember when you're needle felting arms and legs and things that you do have wires in there, so be careful, take it easy, try not to bend or break your needle. And you'll notice that I'm not needle felting straight up and down. I'm needle felting at a shallow angle. The reason for that is I'm less likely to hit the wire and break my needle, but also because then it doesn't go right the way through to the mat usually, and so it doesn't stick to the mat, and you're not having to pull it off and then lay down the fibres that were stuck into the mat. So it makes the job a little bit easier and actually quite a bit quicker. So I'm just doing the shape. I sometimes change the needle. I've got a fine needle and a very fine needle, but this is the basic fine needle. So you get a feel for it, which needle you should be using, and some will be better than others. I do like to finish off with a fine needle. In fact, I use it an awful lot, and as long as you're careful, you're not likely to break them. Sometimes you can if you buy very cheap needles. Now, I'm not saying you should spend a lot of money, but I think it's better to buy a reasonably expensive set of needles. I think it saves you money in the long run. I did actually buy some cheap needles, and my breakages were probably 2 to 3 times as much as with the more expensive needles. So economically, it wasn't viable. So I went back to buying the more expensive needles. But always make sure you've got spares. It does happen. And I think after a while they may get a little metal fatigue, so they may well break after a while anyway, however careful you are, because you're using them an awful lot. So always make sure you've got spare needles however careful you are. It's a good idea. So as you can see now, all I'm doing is smoothing this down and getting a nice shape for the hand, and making sure that the wrist part of the arm is smaller. It's got less diameter than the actual hand, so that it does look like a hand and not just a straight stick. So, and I think that's working quite well there. Okay, and I roll it between my hands. That's the arm I'm rolling there, not the hand, because I want the hand to be flat and I want the arm to be round. So there we go. I think that's come out really nice. We're going to make the second hand, the other end. We do it exactly the same. There's no difference. All you need to do is to try to make sure that they both look fairly similar when you've finished. So. I do spend quite a lot of time needle felting my hands and arms, because I want them to look good, I want them to look smooth, and I want them to look like each other. So that's why I spend quite a bit of time on them. But basically you make both sides exactly the same, and as in this case where the one hand, the one I'm working on now, just does look a little bit bigger than the other end, so I just keep needle felting it down until I bring it into a similar sort of size. working on the sleeve, and basically you choose your wool. This is a tops because it's easier, and you start off at one of the wrists. Now you want to get a nice straight line along where the bottom of the sleeve comes, because you know it's a nice, you want a nice cuff, as it were. So try and get a nice straight line along there, and then just wind round. You'll want to make the arms reasonably thick, but not too much. Okay, and then we just start needle felting down like so, and at the cuff we actually needle felt upwards. You'll see that in a minute, to make it more like a cuff, so that it doesn't just look like an extension of the hand, and you've actually got a division between the cuff and the hand. You'll see me do that in a minute. But I'm just basically needle felting down, again fairly shallow, to try and make the arm nice and straight and smooth to go well with the hands. There we go. So my camera's playing up again. I can only apologise, but there you go. We're going up into the wool there, just at the wrist, just to make the edge of the sleeve at the cuff. So it makes it look like a sleeve as opposed to an extension of the hand. The second sleeve is made exactly the same as the first, nice straight edge at the wrist, and needle felt it down nice and smooth, and try to make it equal to the other arm. Okay, the two wings of wool that we had left when we did the head, we need to pull them up either side and have the pipe cleaners, one forward and one back. Fortunately, I forgot to turn the camera on at the beginning of this clip, but basically you put the arms between the two pipe cleaners and twist the pipe cleaners a few times to hold the arms in place. And here you can see where we're starting to pull down the wisps of wool that we had left from the head, bring them down round the arms and wind them round the body and needle felting them in, giving her a little bit more body, and also making sure that those arms stay in place. Cleaner sticking out of the bottom to later on attach the legs, but as you can see we just needle felt very carefully around the arms and down the body till it gets sort of a nice shape and nice and smooth. And now we will start on the legs. I cut the pipe cleaner at about 16 centimeters. You can make much longer legs if you like, but that is entirely up to you. From here on in, the legs are made exactly the same as the arms, but I tend to make the feet a little bit bigger and the legs a little bit thicker. So once the legs and feet are made, fold them in half and try to make sure that your feet are the same similar sort of size, and make some adjustments if they're not, which I'm doing here. One foot is bigger than the other. It's usually the way, but you know, it can be adjusted quite easily. You can needle felt one down a bit more to make it a bit smaller, or you could add a little bit of extra wool to the other one to make it a little bit bigger. I find it's easier to needle felt one down a bit to make it a bit smaller, but I put them side by side and have a look and see what's what and how I need to adjust them. And at this point you can, if you so wish, put some little slippers on her using a whatever. It would be easier with a carded bat. You could make them match her hair, you could make them match her dress, or you could just do them any colour you fancy. You could just put a little slipper on, and there you see I'm actually adding a little bit more wool to the other foot to make it a little bit bigger, rather than just making the one on the left smaller. So, but yeah, you can make little slippers, like ballet slippers, or whatever you wish, to make them your own. So yeah, that's getting more like it now. Just needle felting in the the extra wool that I've added, and with them in half you can see the feet next to each other, and you can see how that's doing, and the length of the legs as well. So now we're going to attach them to the fairy, exactly the same as we did the arms, really. We're deciding at this point which of the two sides of the head I want to use as the face. I've decided that's the front because that's the nicest one. So with the pipe cleaners to the front and the back, we push the legs up in there. I'll put a couple of twists in the pipe cleaner, and then I fold them up and round the leg as much as possible, and I try to bury the sharp ends into the wool. We will be covering them, so it's not a problem, but if you can push them really hard and bury them in, that works really well. So just tidying up the leg a little bit here, and checking on the length, because this is the point at which you can still pull one and make it a little bit longer. Pull it down a little bit, and once I'm happy with where they are, we will get some of the blue wool and basically make her some pants to cover up the pipe cleaners there, and also to put some extra strength onto holding the the legs on. Just there I was actually found that one of the ends of the pipe cleaner was sticking up a little bit, so I pushed it down really hard with my thumbnail into the wool underneath, and now we're covering them up by putting on effectively a pair of pants. Because I mean, if anybody does decide to look up the skirts of the fairies, you don't want them to see a bare bum. You definitely don't want them to see pipe cleaners, so a bit of wool across there. It matches the legs obviously, and just go round the legs, make them a little bit firmer and cover up any bits of pink that you can see, and needle felt it in. I'm using a bigger needle now to get it well in and well attached. So I'm constantly checking the length of the legs and such like, because this needle felting can actually make a difference to the length of one of the legs. So just keep checking, constantly checking that they are the same length, and pulling on one or pushing it up if that needs to be done. As you can see, I was just adjusting them there. And you can also tidy up your legs at this point. Little bit of white or peach pink showing through there, so I've just moved the wool over and filled it in, but we will be putting more wool on here when we do the body. And as soon as the legs are finished, we will start on the body and the bodice, again using the same colour. And as you can see here, you can just wrap right the way around the body. I prefer to do it in small parts. I just find it's easier to get a nice smooth cover. Some of this will be able to be seen, especially around the neck, so we do want it to look quite good. So we do the front and the back. I just put lay pieces of wool over, and you want to get right into the arms, so that if they move their arms, you don't want them to see any of the pink body underneath. So there you go, you just keep doing that until you get the body completely covered. Once the body is finished, we'll start to add clothes. Now I've got a piece of tops here, merino, and I put it on so that it's the length of the body, and then I double it, and that gives us the length of the skirt that we start with. I want a fairly smooth edge at the bottom, so that extra bit there, you'll see we just pull it off. It doesn't have to be completely smooth because or straight, because we will be trimming it, but and you can see I've got a little bit of a gap in the middle there, so I will in fact fold it over in a minute and smooth it out, because I don't want a gap just there. So here we go, I lay it down, fold it over, and then I spread it out again a little bit. Okay, and then what you need to do is to find the middle. That's in both the width and the length. Find the dead center of it, which I shall do in just a moment there, and then just make a hole. Not a very big hole, you don't want a huge hole, but make a small hole. Okay, with your thumb and fingers, just make a small hole. And then what we do is we pass it over the fairy's head. Now obviously that will make the hole bigger, but that's why you want to start off with a fairly small hole. And we put it over onto her shoulders and we smooth it down, and you can smooth it down so that you've got both sides the same, the front and the back is approximately the same length. If you stick her arms in the air at this point, right up the side of her head, it will help to keep the dress in place while you do everything else that you need to do. Now I'm smoothing out her dress now, and particularly paying particular attention to the edges, the sides, because quite often when you do it like this, it will fold under or over and make an extra thick edge, which you don't want at this point. So keep smoothing it out and paying particular attention. There, you see I just pulled a bit out from underneath, paying particular attention to your edges. Okay, now what I do next is to just needle felt round the, what's it called, decolletage, basically her the V-shaped neckline, and I adjust it to where I want it. In this case I've needle felted it in a little bit, and I needle felt underneath it so that it gives again the appearance of clothes, and that's at the front. So if you can't remember which one's the front, just look at the feet and unfold your edges like that, so that you haven't got that great thick lump at the edge. Once you've done that, I take a thin piece of the same wool, and we're going to tie it round her waist. Now I personally like my fairies to have a nice small waist, gives them a much better shape, and it also makes the dress stick out more once you've finished. So we just wrap it round, pull it up nice and tight, as tight as you can, trying to make sure that your edges do meet at that point. Round we go, nice and tight. You can see how tight I pull it there. Get it round and just needle felt it into position, and that gives her a lovely shape. And I've done a little bit more work around the neck there just to hold it in, but this is about the waist here. Okay, so I needle felt it all the way round, and I use a fairly large needle for this. I think this is a 38. You can then pull her arms down. Now if you want to, you can pull this out on the shoulder there to make a sleeve, but I decided to make this a sleeveless dress, so what I'm doing is pulling it together under the arms and just needle felting it in there so that there isn't a big gap under her arms, and needle felting down where the two pieces join, and up there under the shoulder bit, so which you would do also if you actually pulled it down and made a sleeve. You would do that similar to what we did on the arms and legs to make the cuff. But you can pull it down, you can make a sleeve of it, you can add something else to make a sleeve, whatever you want to do. It's your fairy, but I didn't want to have sleeves on this one. I've done them with sleeves and without sleeves, but I just wanted it to be different. So we just make sure it's well attached. We don't really needle felt it all the way down, but under the arms I do like it to be needle felted a bit to fill it in. Now we'll pull it down. That pulls it nice and firm, and we'll need to trim it because I just pulled a bit off the bottom there, but I think I'll probably trim it with scissors. I do like the feet to show, so I don't really want the skirt to be too long, because I want to be able to see her feet. And you you pull it out, see what it looks like, pull it out, particularly at the sides there, separate out some of the strands, and then you can see just what her skirt's going to look like when she's when it's finished. And I think that this is the point at which I decide I'm going to trim it. So I trim the front and the back separately, as you'll see in a moment. I just get it together, and yeah, you want to make sure that you've got enough skirt. You could at this point add some more if you wish to around the waist, but I think this is enough with what we're doing afterwards. So I've smoothed it down now, and I've separated the front and the back, and I get the scissors and we just trim it across, straight across, so it's going to be shorter and show the feet. But then I use the hairdresser's cut, which is cutting up from the bottom. At the moment it still looks pretty straight, but you'll see as we adjust and pull, it will actually go nice and pointy and fluffy. So there we go, and we repeat that on the back. You don't have to trim it, and you can have it longer, it's entirely up to you. But I do like to be able to see their legs and feet a little bit, so I do trim mine. So there you go. Now we can spread it out again, and you'll see that it will start to go into points. Okay, and this is the point at which you can adjust her bottom and her legs so that she can sit, and pull the dress out so that you're pulling it out and causing points on the dress, which is what we want, what we like. We'll do more of that as we go along, but it does do it naturally to a certain extent anyway. So there we have her, and she's now able to sit, which is great. Whoops. You can adjust this as much as you like, and you can see now, you can't see that it's a straight cut anymore, because you've got all the fluffy bits where we've been pulling it. And there she is, ready to have her top skirt on. Now this is some voile. It's a strip of voile. I can't remember the width of it. Hold on just a sec, I'll show it. Measure some. It's 5 centimeters, so it's about 2 inches wide, and all I do is I take a piece, I measure it to fit round her waist, and then I double it so that you've got a nice bit to gather up. Now there are 2 ways you can put this skirt on and gather it up. Oh, I got the voile from Wish, by the way. They do it in lots of different colours. So the one way is that you can get a needle and cotton, and you can put a running thread along one of the long edges, and then with a big knot, and pull it up, which makes it gathered, and then you can just put it round her body and stitch it on, finish stitching it on at the back. You don't take the needle out of the thread or anything, and you can finish stitching it on at the back. But I've discovered this is just as easy. You can actually needle felt it on. It does kind of work. It's a very, very fine voile, so it's got very small holes in it, and when you needle felt, the wool comes back up through the holes. So I start at the back, needle felting it, putting little pleats into it as I go along, get it nice and level, and then bring the other end round to meet the bit that you've just done. And then I needle felt that in. As I said, we just make a little pleat and needle felt it. I use quite a big needle, and once I'm happy that I've got it well attached at the back, there's no need to seam it, it won't show. I've overlapped it a little bit, and of course you've got the beautiful sparkles on that. You can use any tulle as long as it's quite fine, yeah. So you could use a plain tulle and stick some sequins to it if you wish to make it sparkly like this, but this is perfect. You can find it on Wish if you just search for tulle. You'll see lots of it, lots of plain and lots of, as I said, lots of these. Do a proper search though, because some are more expensive than others. You do have to wait for them to arrive from Wish, but in my opinion it's worth it. I've got blue and purple at the moment, and I've ordered some other colours and they're actually on their way from China at the moment. So as I said, as you go round, you're going to put little pleats in until it fits neatly to the waist. So just fold it over in little bits in places, just fold it down and then needle felt it in. And we will end up by putting a waistband over the top anyway, which is what I think I'm going to do now. So I'm pulling the skirt down, because when you're needle felting the waistband, you want to make sure that the skirt is pointing down and that you're not catching any of the bottom bits in with your needle felting going around the waist. And because it sort of flares out quite a lot, you do have to make sure that it's nice and smooth and pushed down. So here we go, the waistband. This will hold the voile where we put it, and again make a nice tidy finish around the middle. And needle felt it down nice and firmly, because you do want to hold that voile in there. You don't want it coming off. I mean, although we've already needle felted it in position, you really do need the waistband to finish holding it. And then I just spread it out a little bit, because some of the gathers may be sort of all in one place, but spread it out and then spread out the skirt underneath it. And you can see how pretty that looks, because you've got the wool with the points on and the fluffiness, and the voile over the top. To the hair. Once you've decided what colour you want to make the hair, again I use tops, just lay the hair on, because you can decide what sort of hairstyle you want. You see I've laid a piece on there, and I've just sort of needle felted it in to make like a parting, and I'm laying the second piece on and just putting in the parting. And you can try different ways of doing a hairstyle. This one is actually a swept back hairstyle with a bun. It's slightly over the face on one side but not the other. So it's got a side parting really. And bring it round to the back and just, in this case, attach it here. We're going to make it into a bun, so I just attach it together at the back of the neck, so that will enable me to turn that into a bun. You've got the two fluffy ends there. Just make sure it's nice and smooth, and I do needle felt down this edge here at the back, because we're going to put another piece onto the back. Make sure you've got a nice parting and it's holding the hair in where you want it. So there you go. and you can see that it's covered a large amount. I do needle felt it just a little bit under there, just to keep it smooth on the face. Now I take another piece and I lay it across the back here, and as you can see I'm just needle felting it gently at the bottom, but I am actually needle felting across the top to make like another parting really, but across just behind the bits that we've already put on, and using a nice strong needle for this. And the head is still fairly soft, so you have to work reasonably hard to get this to stay on properly. And then we'll smooth down the other side of it, which was the bit that was sticking up. It's like putting on animal fur, if you see now how you do that. I decided it wasn't attached enough, so I've gone back and put in a little bit more of a parting there, or an attachment. And as you can see, the extra bit is at the moment up above the head, but we will fold that down, smooth it down, and attach it with the rest at the back of the neck. So I'm just smoothing it down at the moment. I'm sorry it's out of shot, and I just doing a little bit of tidying up there down the edge because it was a bit loose, and both sides just attach it. It doesn't really notice once you've finished, so gather it all together there and needle felt it in at the back of the neck really nice and firmly, because you're going to turn it into a bun. Once you've got it all attached, you can just lift it up, and I like to get it nice and smooth when I pull it up, and then I just twist it, yeah, reattaching at the back of the neck. Some of it came a bit loose while I was pulling on it, but twist it round to make like a bun, like a circle. You see I'm just twisting and twisting until you get to the end, and then just tuck the end in underneath, and you will have formed a bun. Needle felt that down. You can needle felt quite hard into the middle of it, but also you can needle felt around the edges. You just don't want any of it to escape, that's all, and become wispy. So as you can see, I'm needle felting underneath the bun because that makes it stick out more, and it look a lot better, yeah. And then I needle felt quite hard into the middle, so and underneath, until you're quite, and once you're happy that that is well attached, that's your hair done. Once I've got the hair completely finished, I start to add some embellishments. Now what embellishments you add is entirely up to you. I actually decided to use flowers on this. If you look at the pictures of the fairies here, you can see the different types of embellishments that you can use, and it's entirely up to you. It depends what you've got in your stash. You can make needle felted flowers or whatever you wish. And now to make the wings. Right, I started off by laying some heat bondable Angelina fibre onto a piece of parchment paper, folded another piece over the top and ironed it with a very hot iron, and as you can see it basically turns it into a fabric, which you can cut out your wing shapes and whatever you wish. You don't need to do it very much, but what I like to do is to add a piece of a very lightweight iron-on interfacing, because I think it makes the wings a little bit firmer, it makes them stand up to more, and it's easier to draw your pattern out on it, and to attach them. So I just used it with the sticky side down, and I iron it on here. That was a mistake, shouldn't have done that, but without the parchment paper, but you live and learn. So my iron is on maximum, but I accidentally that was because I accidentally touched the steam button. You do not want to do that, but that's okay, I've still got plenty of it. And in fact I used it for several fairies. So there we go. That's your made piece of fabric ready for cutting out. Now I've taken a piece of the fabric, and onto the back, which is onto the interfacing, I'm drawing round my wing shape. I just use a pen, but when I cut it out I try very hard to cut inside of the pen marks, so you can cut the pen marks off so they don't show. You do get a sort of a white effect to the back of the wings, but it is the back, so it's not too terrible. I did try to use the bondable heat bondable Angelina fibre on its own, but I found that it did kind of fray a little, so this is why I decided to use the iron-on interfacing. It's a very lightweight one. You can get it almost anywhere, any haberdashery shop or Amazon or whatever, but yeah, it's just lightweight iron-on interfacing. I'll try and drop a link below. And the heat bondable Angelina fibre I bought from the makers. Having carefully cut out your wings, I'm going to decorate them now. What I have is some little self-adhesive like balls, half balls, and some glue in a very fine tipped bottle. I'll try and put some links down below for the glue and the bottles if I can. But although they're self-adhesive, I do prefer to use a little glue. So, and we just glue them on. I've also decided here to add a couple of buttons to her dress, which will match the little things that I've put on the wings. There we have her, and you can see her flower decorations and her sparkly her neck, and very shortly now I shall be attaching the wings. Just want to make sure that these buttons have glued down. So I take a very fine strip of the dress fabric, or the dress wool should I say, sorry, still in my dressmaking days, and the wings. Make sure that you put the wings on with the sparkly bit towards the front. I've done it wrong a couple of times now and I could kick myself, but this time I remembered and turned it round. You need them to face front. So you put the piece of wool over the centre of the wings and start needle felting down at the top and at the bottom. Be very careful with the hair. You don't want to get caught up in the hair, so I push the bun to one side, or push it up a little, and then I needle felt in quite firmly to hold the wings in place, as you can see. And then I will also needle felt the bottom. Now what I do is I tuck the wool underneath and pull it down just a little bit, so I've got enough to needle felt there, but without having the wispy ends. So we just needle felt that in at the back. Nice strong needle to do that with, and needle felt that in right up to where the wings are. Okay, and then you can actually needle felt through the wings with having put the Vilene is a trade name, but the interfacing on, you can needle felt through it, and it works really well, and it helps to hold the wings in place, and it looks fairly neat. I just neaten up the edges as I'm doing it. So and there we have her now with her wings.